We have figured them to be a small population species with a single planet, and basic sublight craft for asteroid mining. We'd assumed that due to the isolation of this system relative to the rest of known space, that no one else knew they were here. We had observed that they seemed to be effectively unarmed with only primitive chemical propulsion projectile weapons and sharp, pointy things. We had prepared for a simple invasion and subjugation of the population until they could be assimilated into our empire. We had not prepared for how contentious a people they were. First, we sent an order to surrender their system and lay down arms after orbital bombardment of their spaceport and identifiable military positions. Within 30 seconds, we received a transmission. It was some form of video file which we later learned carried a computer worm. It turned every network display on our ships to only show a shirtless, barrel-chested primate covered in muscles and nearly pure white skin, red fur on his chest, face and top of head, wearing what looked like nothing more than a pair of boots and a square-patterned heavy cloth covering hanging from waist to knees. It held an air-filled sack with metal pipes sticking out of it, which it used to create horrible, discordant sounds at maximum volume. Crew members closest to audio devices began to fall to the ground screaming, holding their bleeding ears. Those who were not rendered temporarily or permanently deafened by the sonic warfare felt a combination of horror and a feeling of being against overwhelming odds. Techs worked for nearly 2 hours in an attempt to stop the sound after hard disconnecting speakers throughout our ships with drones. While this happened, dropships began deploying ground troops with the best hearing protection we had on offer. There were few major hubs of population on this planet. The native species seemed to prefer small communities spread in a wide area with fields and hills of natural landscape between. I was deployed to one of the smaller population hubs. There were speakers bearing the sonic weapon, in addition to what sounded like speech over it. Our hearing protection stopped us from having anything beyond psychological effects from the noise, though we could still make out the words, barely.
Alright, you spineless alien assholes! Here was what's gonna happen! I will personally shove my bloody bags up your crease, scoop it up in your first stew, and turn your guts to haggis!
After the fourth repeat of the speech, there we saw motion in the hills surrounding the village. The natives had hidden apparently underground, and they emerged wearing the same attire as the one in the video, though the apparent females had torso coverings, wielding what seemed like metal sticks for our optics. Before we could react, a war cry came from the dozens of spread out natives and filled the air, most certainly amplified by some kind of technology.
Fire!
As if they were a singular mind, all swung their sticks in a downward arc towards the ground, striking small projectiles with absurd accuracy and velocity at ranges of 70 yards. The projectiles exploded shortly after landing near us, and the natives began serpentine movements along and behind the hill covering, stopping occasionally to release another war cry and launch another barrage of explosives. Then, the native military arrived. Yes, that is correct. The natives we were at the time seeking cover from were civilians. As we were requesting immediate and urgent close air support and possible evac due to enemy ambush, enemy fighter craft blared overhead towards our original drop zone and towards atmosphere. Armoured ground transports were rapidly approaching from both ends of the road and over the hills. One at the lead was clearly a large, heavily armed, surprisingly fast for its apparent mass mobile weapons platform. Standing on top of, no, not in a turret, magnetically attached to the top of the vehicle behind the main weapon barrel, was a native wearing the lower body covering over impressive looking body armor. Utilizing his sonic weapon, amplified by loudspeakers on most of the nearby vehicles, the assault almost overpowered our hearing protection, but seemed to rally the civilians further. We loaded back into our own transports and made an attempt at escape before the military could get closer. As we were retreating, the sonic assault paused momentarily to make way for the being to speak.
Bah! Gang ahead and win! Maybe when your species are grown a pair of stones, your body look men. Until then I'll just chase you to the ends of the galaxy, if I need to make good on my tryst.
And now, we hide in a bombed out town, in some kind of storage warehouse for a food item made from the lactations of a black and white spotted mammal. I can hear it, the sonic weapon getting closer. I don't hear engines anymore, and the last air recon sweep before we lost most contact with the fleet showed the armoured weapon carrier walking towards the town we're hiding in. Walking, slowly, surely, Sonic emitter being utilized the entire way, with a large blade weapon sheathed at his side, slightly dragging its tip on the ground. A ranged weapon slung on his front, beneath the emitter. A single communication from command reached us. Apparently intel fucked up for what must be the first time in all military history. This is a colony world, which had decided to only interact with the rest of their kind for trade shipments and military support. The natives weren't natives, and they called home. They called Scotland. It's close now. At least we have food here. Maybe it will accept surrender.